Fires don't happen very often in motorsport, but when they do, they can be fierce. So quick and decisive action is vital. To fight fires effectively, it helps to understand them. Understand, for instance, what is known as the triangle of fire. You must have three things in order to have fire: something to burn, enough heat to raise the material to its ignition temperature, and oxygen. Remove any one of the three, and the fire will go out. You can remove anything to burn by turning off the fuel supply or removing flammable materials. You can remove heat with a cool liquid, water or foam, or a dry powder fire extinguisher. And you can remove oxygen by sealing the area with foam or covering it with soil or sand. Before we look at how to actually put out fires, let's consider the equipment you'll need. First and foremost, your own personal equipment. It can't be stressed too highly that your own safety is vital. If you get hurt, you won't be able to fight fires or help anyone. It's important to have the right clothing for the job. For instance, wear natural fibers, cotton and wool, particularly next to the skin. Man-made fibers such as nylon and polyesters can melt even under protective overalls, causing nasty burns. And have stout boots, preferably with steel toe caps. You'll also need loose-fitting gauntlet-type gloves. Next, a look at your key weapons: fire extinguishers. Historically, fire extinguishers were colour-coded by painting the whole of the extinguisher, but the European Union has decreed that extinguishers must be red or unpainted metal, with their type identified by a coloured label, band or other marking. You may find both types. Blue indicates they are filled with a dry powder, which is propelled by an inert gas stored in the extinguisher itself or in a sealed cylinder inside the extinguisher, which is punctured when the trigger is squeezed. White indicates a foam extinguisher filled with a mixture of water and detergent-type liquid and propelled by a compressed gas, which is also stored in the extinguisher or a sealed cylinder inside it. You may also see black, carbon dioxide. These extinguishers are used for electrical fires, and red, water extinguishers in spectator stands, race or rally control and so on, but these are not used to fight vehicle fires. To recap: blue, dry powder; white, foam; black, carbon dioxide; and red, water. Marshals posts on circuits and at speed events are usually equipped with one or more pairs of blue dry powder and white foam extinguishers. On a rally, you may only have what you bring with you, plus the vehicle's plumbed-in system. If you are buying an extinguisher for your own car or to go rallying, remember you may need to be able to put out wood fires as well as flammable liquids and gases. Whether it's a dry powder or foam extinguisher, you need to carry out a number of checks at the start of the day. With both types, ensure the pin is present and secure. Don't remove the pin, but check that it is loose enough to be removed easily in an emergency. If the extinguisher has a pressure gauge, check the needle is in the middle section of the gauge. Check the hose is intact and not blocked. Hoses perish or get frayed with age and damaged where they bend. Check the weight and be suspicious of light bottles. They could be empty. And remember that with dry powder extinguishers, the powder will settle and form a plug at the bottom of an extinguisher if it is left to stand for a long period. Turn it upside down and put it on your shoulder. Listen for the powder moving. If it doesn't, shake the extinguisher to loosen it. So those are fire extinguishers. Now let's look at how to use them to fight the various things that can burn on a car. First, fuel, of course. Petrol fires should be tackled with powder and foam extinguishers. But remember, petrol isn't the only fuel used in racing. Some older cars, drag race vehicles, hill climb and sprint cars may be fueled by methanol, which burns with a clear flame that can't be seen. A methanol fire can be knocked down by dry powder extinguishers, but methanol breaks down the foam in conventional foam extinguishers and is prone to reigniting. Next, brakes. These fires are started by the temperature of the pads igniting brake fluid. If the brake assembly isn't cooled, the fluid will reignite. This is one of the few occasions where a foam extinguisher alone is the best way of fighting a fire. Brake discs are usually large enough to take the thermal shock of rapid cooling without shattering, but that still remains a possibility, so stand well back and take extra care. Turbo fires also involve high temperatures. However, rapid cooling could well lead to the turbine shattering, sending metal shrapnel around. You could try excluding air by covering the turbo outlet with a gloved hand. But the safest option is to use a dry powder extinguisher, although it will almost certainly mean an engine rebuild. And beware of reignition with turbo fires. Exhaust fires should be tackled with powder, followed by foam. Be particularly wary of grass fires in hot, dry weather if a car pulls off a track. Parts of the car may remain hot for a very long time. Moving on. Fires involving magnesium alloys, often used to reduce weight, are rare, but they need great care. Under no circumstances use a water or foam extinguisher on such a fire. That will actually make the fire worse. The best way of fighting such a fire is to cover the burning item to exclude air. Glass-reinforced plastic bodywork on cars can catch fire, as can other composites, and may give off dangerous fumes, so extra care is required. Fight such fires with a dry powder extinguisher, followed by foam. Tyres are highly unlikely to catch fire unless the vehicle's been burning for a considerable time. Watch will need to be kept to ensure there's no reignition. Burning tyres give off an acrid black smoke, which you should avoid inhaling. Use powder and foam, although the best way of extinguishing burning tyres is to use a large amount of water to cool the heated rubber. Next, burning trim. Use powder, followed by foam. Remember, some plastics and rubber compounds used in vehicles leave behind a very corrosive acid when burnt. Another reason for wearing gloves. If you should get the acid on your skin, simply flushing with water may not be enough, so seek hospital treatment. And beware of the fumes given off by burning trim. And finally, electrical fires. These should be tackled with dry powder. It helps with both fuel and electrical fires to familiarize yourself with the competing cars and their safety systems. Find out where the fuel tanks are and the external extinguisher and fuel cut-off switches. Are they in the same place? Are there any other cut-offs you should know about? You must make sure that any competing vehicle that pulls off or crashes has its electrics isolated. Get the driver to isolate the electrics if possible. If the car is on fire, then isolate the electrics at the earliest opportunity and use the car's onboard fire extinguisher system if possible. Many onboard extinguishers, both plumbed-in and handheld ones, are foam-based, usually filmed with AFFF, aqueous film-forming foam. Onboard extinguishers can either be fired mechanically by pulling a handle or electrically by pressing a button or flicking a switch. And so to recap. Remember the triangle of fire. You must have three things in order to have a fire: something to burn, enough heat to raise the material to its ignition temperature, and oxygen. Remember the color codes for the fire extinguishers. Blue indicates they're filled with a dry powder. White is a foam extinguisher. Black, carbon dioxide. And red, water. And remember which extinguisher to use to fight the different fires. First, fuel. Petrol fires should be tackled with dry powder and foam extinguishers. For brakes, use a foam extinguisher alone. For turbo fires, the safest option is to use a dry powder extinguisher. Exhaust fires should be tackled with powder, followed by foam. Fires involving magnesium alloys, you should try to exclude the air and under no circumstances use foam or water. For glass-reinforced plastic bodywork, fight such fires with a dry powder extinguisher, followed by foam. For tyres, use powder and foam, although the best way is to use a large amount of water. For trim, use powder followed by foam. And finally, electrical fires should be tackled with dry powder. So those are the various fires you may encounter and what extinguishers to use on them. To fight any fire effectively, you should obviously understand how any equipment works. Read instructions on fire extinguishers before an event, not by the light of a fire on it. And remember that the performance of extinguishers is maximised by using the correct technique for the particular extinguisher. Train with your colleagues on the equipment whenever possible. At events, decide who will take which extinguisher and which of the marshals will lead the team. It should be one of the marshals with the dry powder extinguishers who will be going in first. And if, after all the preparation and training, there is a fire, well, the priority is to save life and then protect property. The most obvious danger to a driver is burns, but fires consume oxygen, and lack of oxygen can result in brain damage or even death before a casualty is actually burnt. The aim has to be to get to a burning vehicle and have the fire under control and preferably extinguished within 30 seconds. To do this, act as a team. Take care running to an incident with a fire extinguisher. Carry it by the handle. Don't risk personal injury by jumping down when carrying an extinguisher, and conserve some energy for fighting the fire. If it is safe, approach with the wind behind you to avoid smoke and powder getting blown in your face. Stop about 4 meters away from the blaze to collect your thoughts and make sure any colleagues who are with you are ready. Take the extinguisher pins out. Briefly press the trigger while holding the nozzle. Powder or foam should appear. Then, working as a team, marshals with blue, dry powder extinguishers should go in first to knock the flames down, followed by marshals with white foam extinguishers. Don't get too near. If you can feel the heat, you are too close, and the power of an extinguisher could spread burning fuel. And don't run through flames. Extinguish ground fires as you approach. And try not to cover fellow marshals with flames, powder or foam. If the driver is trapped inside, the cockpit area clearly takes top priority. If the driver is out but on fire, get him down on the ground. Pat and smother any flames or use an extinguisher. On the other hand, if the driver is out and safe, concentrate on the seat of the fire. Dry powder is delivered in bursts to knock down the fire, while foam is sprayed onto the site of the fire to cool and seal it. Check at regular intervals to see if the fire has gone out. Stop using the extinguishers when it has, and conserve the remaining powder and foam in case the fire reignites. Watch out for flashbacks, underbody fires, fires in engine bays and boots. Don't fling open a bonnet or boot. One marshal, wearing protective gloves and keeping low, should open the lid enough for another marshal to insert the pipe of an extinguisher into the opening to give a quick burst. Incidentally, the person opening the lid should keep their back to the car, about the only occasion when they should, because the effect of opening may be uncertain. Once the flames are out, damp the car down and keep watching. Extinguishers are a must when clearing up a car that has been on fire. After an incident, report the number and type of extinguishers you've used so that they can be replaced. Include partially used ones in your tally, and don't trust them if there's another fire. At a circuit, leave used extinguishers lying on the edge of the track at the end of the day. So to sum up, to be an effective firefighter in motorsport, you must understand what causes a fire. Have the right equipment, check it and understand how to use it correctly. Appreciate what can burn on a car and what extinguishers to use. Train on the equipment so that you are totally familiar with it. Always work as a team. And never assume that a fire is out. And don't turn your back on a fire. The Motorsport Safety Fund hopes you found this video helpful and wishes you enjoyable and safe motorsport.